What up, everybody? This is the Built Different podcast. Again, the usual suspects, myself, Sean, Justin. And again, I haven't shouted him out in a while. Shout out to my boy Leonard and Elemental's music with the opening. If anybody wants to, see his work or want a beat from him, hit him up. We'll try and put his information in our descriptions. But a few weeks ago, we touched on social media and how technology's influence on social media. We talked about the platforms we used, the highs, the lows. Today we want to talk about one of the things that's it's kind of a hot topic right now. But how social media has helped athletes, how it's helped sports, and how it's maybe hurt athletes in sports. So yeah, we wanted to talk a little bit about, maybe we kind of start with the highs, because it's there have been a lot of great things that came about via social media. Justin, what are your thoughts on social media and how athletes have been able to engage with their fans and what it's been able to do for careers?
I think it's been great. Like for example, I think the biggest I noticed it a lot more with like UFC fighters and stuff because they're able to build like their own brand. Like I think of
Yeah.
someone like Sean O'Malley kind of. He's used like the UFC to like build up his own platform. He has his own podcast now. He has his own clothing line now. He has all these things that he did. I mean, yeah, the UFC like gave him the platform, but yeah, I think he streams on Twitch too now. Like he used like the UFC to kind of catapult himself into like a mainstream kind of brand, which is very cool.
Hmm.
Social media is definitely like a tool that people like athletes can use to put themselves into a better position financially because sometimes maybe if you're a UFC fighter there's a lot of issues with like fighter pay and stuff now, but there's if you use the platform you can figure out new ways to make money and stuff, which is pretty cool. And then it's also cool that like they have that direct interaction with fans. It's not like before social media where it was like it was kind of like this aura or this mystery behind like who these people are. Now you can literally like
Hmm.
read at Conor McGregor and he could respond to you or something like that. It's kind of crazy, and I think it kind of removes like the middleman whenever you hear like rumors about like is Tom Brady, well maybe not Tom Brady, but is this player gonna stay on this certain team, instead of wondering about it. The player can just like tweet about it and then you have that direct confirmation of whether or not like they're leaving or something like that. So I feel like overall having social media has made being an athlete better because it's made it easier to make your own brand, but it's also been able to made it easier for you to kind of connect with people as a whole.
I think you touched on something there, because yeah, the UFC, they're essentially, the fighters are independent contractors.
Right.
It's not like the NFL where you have it's the team, the team in the league want to promote their athletes and get them kind of out there. You know what I mean? And that's a whole thing with contract negotiation with the UFC. In football or basketball, popularity may not come into play. It's like kind of what you do more so on the field, but your brand and how big you build it on social media for a fighter is huge, because that translates to pay-per-view sales. It translates to viewership, and you saw that with a fight earlier this year, Tank Davis versus Ryan Garcia. I mean, they did I think around 1.2 or 1.5 million pay-per-views, and a big portion of that, one was Tank is a proven, like, exciting fighter that sells out stadiums. But on the other side of that, it's Ryan Garcia. He had a huge following on social media, so that fight, it became huge, and those guys got paid handsomely for it.
Yeah, for sure.
Sean, any thoughts on? I know we always are sending each other things from the world of sports, and some good, some bad. But what do you think of the good that social media has been able to do for athletes in their personal brands and just monetarily?
Yeah, I mean, I think the the example that Justin said with combat sports is a really, really good example. I think for a lot of these other sports where, it's more of a team based thing, it might be more of a performance individual based thing. Um, it's not going to be as impactful to them as far as things like that, but it still is very impactful in the sense of sponsorship agreements. If you're like back in the day, it was like, oh, if you did a deal with this person, like it's because they were wearing your shoe and they were in your commercials and stuff. And now that
Mm-hmm.
TV is becoming like less and less, like a lot more people are cutting the cord. Commercial time is not as important, while the seeing the athlete out in public, or like the athlete posting on social media about your company and stuff like that's huge. A lot of famous athletes have large followings, and I think, to be honest, one of the biggest impacts that it's had is within college sports, because you now have name, image, and likeness. So college athletes are now able to make money, and
Mm-hmm.
most of the college athletes who are able to take advantage of name, image, and likeness are people who are active on social media. There's an example, Livy Dunn. She's an influencer on TikTok and other platforms, and she's an athlete for LSU gymnastics.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I know, not too many people knew about LSU gymnastics prior to Livy Dunn going there. Now people are like, "Oh my God, we love LSU gymnastics." So, and that's all because of social media and the platform that's kind of grown, for those younger athletes to kind of get their name out there and get that publicity, um, and in her case, it actually led to um, her being able to do like like working with Sports Illustrated swimsuit and stuff like that. So,
Mm-hmm.
opportunities can come from having a successful social media, especially as an athlete, and it gives you a platform to kind of like, not only talk your opinion on whatever's going on in your current life, but whatever is going on publicly in the world at that time.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like a lot of these college athletes, volleyball players, softball players, I never knew about them. I didn't, know about the program, but you see constantly NIL deals being posted, and it's just I don't know what the statistic is, and it's different in other sports, but there's specific sports that there is no professional outlet for the collegiate athlete. Or, it could be basketball, football, baseball, hockey, where, there's only a small percent that make it. But you remember there was a kid from UCF, wasn't it the kicker, that had like built a massive following on YouTube, and that was pre NIL. So, NCAA tried to like put a stop to what he was doing, which wasn't even related to football. But there's those opportunities because you can build a brand, you can build a company, you can be an influencer, you can some company may want to use you for marketing opportunities and market their products and so forth. So I think that's been one of the bigger things that is a benefit to athletes. The term. I don't know if you wanted to say anything about the UCF football player. I felt like you were trying to say something there.
I mean, he actually got kicked off the team because that was before
Yeah,
NIL
sure.
was allowed. So
Hmm.
they told him, they were like, either you delete your YouTube or you're off of the football team. And he said, okay, I'm off of the football team. So, that I think that kind of is what really kind of started the movement to get collegiate athletes NIL opportunities and allowing them to change the laws so that they could get paid for those kinds of things. So shout out to, I believe his name was Oscar De La Hoya. Um, I could be wrong about that, but
That's a famous
um,
boxer, so I just.
maybe it's not. Maybe it's something else.
Oh,
Um,
wait, they have
but
the name as a famous boxer.
I could be wrong. But yeah, no, I mean, shout out to him, shout out to UCF for kind of getting the ball rolling on it.
Yeah, that was a crazy case. I remember when that happened, and for him, he identified that he's going to be, he probably isn't going to make it to the NFL. He's doing well in football. I mean, he's doing well with the YouTube thing. So
Donald De La Haye. I was
Oh,
I
you're
was wrong.
right.
Correction.
close enough,
Yeah.
close enough. um, yeah, I think what's crazy though is like you never heard the term personal brand. I think prior to social media, like like you said, Sean, people have different, Gatorade or Powerade, Nike, Adidas, all these different brands, but you know, I don't think that they had per se their own personal brand, which I think social media allowed them to establish. There was no type of fan interaction. A lot of different athletes. You didn't know much about them or what their personality was like prior to social media, good or bad, because it's kind of been on both sides of coins. People have kind of had a negative stigma behind their name after people got to know them, and then it's mostly positive, but yeah, I think it's been great for athletes. It's cool to follow their journey. Me, I love watching training, and I like seeing the work that they put in. So it's cool seeing what they do to prepare and how hard they work and how that translates to game time. So I think that's really cool. I pointed out one of the bigger things is UFC and building your brand, and your brand and your following, and boxing as well. It's the results in how much money you make. You know what I mean? You're one of the more quiet fighters that doesn't really post much. There's not anything there. One of the things too, and Justin, I think you probably agree with me here, but a lot of fights get made on Twitter. A lot of fights get made over social media. You know what I mean?
Yeah, very.
So I would say more so in boxing than UFC, but yeah, the trash talk starts getting going. Fans start getting interested. People start chiming in. Next thing you know, a fight's made, and next thing you know, the interest levels there because people have been sitting there watching the back and forth trash talking it. And more so in any other sport, fighting sports, when trash talk gets good and there's some animosity there, that's when people want to tune in. You can have casual fans. Like I remember Caleb Plant was fighting Canelo, and Canelo like slapped him on the stage. You know what I mean? And there was a lot of trash talk after that. And my sister happened to see it. She's like, "Man, when does this fight happen? I want to watch, see this fight." Typically, she'll watch a big fight every now and then, but when
Yeah,
there's heat and animosity, like the general public tend to be like, "I want to tune into that because I see that there's some bad blood here, and that bad blood typically people think it equals a knockout or some demolition job by one guy or girl, or the one guy over the other or one girl over the other. So I think that's been huge, social media, and you see it all the time. That's kind of the big fight coming up, Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford. It it was always going to be a big fight, but it became bigger when the two fan bases started jaw jacking, you know what I mean, talking trash to each other, and then they started talking trash to each other, and
yeah.
yeah, it's blown up, and it's going to do very well because fan bases and everything got involved and started hyping it up with the trash talk. So I think yeah, that's my favorite aspect of social media.
It's crazy to see though, like how social media can basically it can like save your career too to a degree. Like think of someone like Colby Covington, who is not, he definitely takes it too far a lot of times, but I don't know if you guys heard the story, but before he started becoming like the loudmouth kind of vulgar guy
The
on
heel.
social media, yeah, but the heel, that the UFC was about to cut him. Like they thought he was boring. They thought he was like his style of fighting was boring and stuff, and they were
I
about
didn't
to
know
cut.
that.
Yeah, but he apparently what I heard is that he cut that promo in Brazil where he just started talking all that trash like on the mic after he beat Dos Anjos, and then the UFC was like, "Well,
Hmm.
dang, now we have to keep him," and so now he created this whole image on social media that he basically built his entire like resurgence off of being this really just ridiculous character on social media, and now he's one of the bigger fighters on the in the UFC now.
Yeah,
I think
he. Go ahead, Chuck.
I think people in general, and even more specifically America, they love a good villain story. Like if there's a villain, like it just kind of like attracts attention. Like even if it's not people rooting for the villain, like
Yeah,
people
Hmm.
will just watch because they want to see the villain lose. And that's what Colby's made his entire career on. He's okay with everyone rooting against him, and as long as it's making him more money.
Yeah, that was the Mayweather philosophy, and I think that's where a lot of fighters were like, I love me or hate me, you're gonna tune in to watch because the people that love you, they're gonna tune in to see you win. The people that hate you, they're wanting to see you get knocked out. And
Yeah,
that's what basically made what Mayweather a billion and $1 billion in like fight purses is he knew how to push people's buttons. And I mean he did a lot of crazy things, said a lot of crazy things, but he knew it was all for it's going to put money in his pocket. And that's what's happened with Kobe.
I remember I saw a quote that said, it was love me or hate me, you watched. That's all you could do. And I was like, oh dang, did like a pro fighter say that? And I
Oh,
looked it up, and it was a professional bowler. I thought that was hilarious.
I wonder if it's that one. There's a guy that talks a lot of trash in bowling. He's kind of,
Uh,
I want to say he's a heavy set guy, but yeah, I wonder if it's that guy.
Like out of any sport, it's bowling.
I don't know his name.
I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, go ahead.
I will say, I think, that's another thing that we didn't really touch on from like not only from the athlete side of it, but like the overall general sports side of it is
Hmm.
social media's made a lot of sports more popular than they were before. Like a lot of the smaller sports, like a lot of people didn't know what disc
Pickleball.
golf was, and
Yeah.
like then they see a couple years ago, I think it was 2 years ago, there was a crazy shot where a guy basically made like a 300-foot shot, James Conrad, to tie it in like the world championships, and like everyone went crazy. It was like number one on Sports Center, and like all these people were like, whoa, what is this sport, like, so it just kind of like
Hmm.
grows. It can grow an entire sport. And I've even seen like organizations like teams using social media to grow their popularity. I think earlier this year the Chargers made some social
Yeah,
media posts where they were basically like poking fun and like memeing the rest of the teams that were on their schedule that year. So
Yeah.
you know,
That,
super funny.
that's another good point there, Sean. Like I think a lot of these teams, some of these teams have better social media groups running their accounts than others because sometimes they can start a trend as well. You know what I mean? There can be trends that start based off of things that are said. And the popularity thing as well, yeah, it can be used to, like you said, it could be one thing and people take notice of it and start to want to tune in, or even even like even like a sport where people typically watch, more people may tune in because something happened on social media, something was trending. You know what I mean? And people will tune in
Power
more
Slap.
often. But huh?
Look at Power Slap. That like blew up completely by social media.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Crazy.
it can be it doesn't have to be, it can be there's influencers that can influence things and get people to tune in or buy things, but there's also influential moments, influential things that people say, influential words. Yeah, I mean I don't know, it's been crazy. Like I said, I couldn't picture, you know I always try and picture what it would have been like back in the day with Jordan or Magic Johnson, or if social media was around back then, like what would it have been like for them. Because back then it was tabloids, it was newspaper, you'd see it on the news, Sports Center. Like
Yeah.
what would their lives have been like, what would their brands have been become. Obviously Jordan's ridiculously huge even without social media, but what would it have been looked like had he had social media.
Good point.
and Jordan's an interesting case study because I mean, he's always kind of not as much when he was playing, but he's always been one that kind of didn't really want to put his stuff out there. Like
Yeah,
he's always kind of stayed out. Anytime someone asked him about something, they're like, "Oh, what's your
reserved.
opinion on this or this?" He's
Yeah,
like, "I don't want to talk about it." So
yeah.
versus there's some athletes nowadays who want to have their input to everything, but we can get to that when we go to the negatives.
Well, that's what's funny about it, though, is that you have Charles Barkley that refuses to use social media, and his brand has gotten ridiculously huge. And can you imagine Charles Barkley and him talking about things on social media and quote, like things that happen to him, kind of, because he's a very he speaks his mind, you know what I mean, and that's why people love him because he'll speak his mind. So imagine him engaged in the social media. That's one person that I watch Inside the NBA all the time because I love the cast and they're just hilarious to me. But they're always trying to get him to get on social media, and he's like, no, I don't want to do social media. But I imagine how crazy it would be if he was on social media and he was commenting on things and interacting with fans. It would be wild because, he even on that show he talks some major trash to fans and your mama, all this type of stuff. So imagine if he was on social media and there's always these trolls on there, which I guess we can get into too when we talk about the downside. But there's always these trolls on there that want to get a rise out of somebody. Can you imagine Charles Barkley and the things he'd be saying to them on there?
I do think it's cool though how like for professional sports, social media has kind of given them like an outlet for after their career too. Like you think the first person I thought of was like Pat McAfee. Like he was a
Oh yeah,
punter in the NFL, and I can't remember
he's bigger now than he was in the NFL.
yeah, I can't remember if he started doing his show like while he was still playing or if he did it right after. But I mean,
he quit the NFL to do his show.
Yeah, like
he was active, and then he was like, I'm gonna go do social media instead. And it was kind of like surprising because he was one of the better punters in the league at that point. It wasn't like he was like washed up or anything. He's just like, nah, I want to do social media instead, and so it worked out.
Yeah, signed like a crazy contract with ESPN. I think so. It's crazy the power of social media. You can almost be bigger than you were being an actual athlete.
It's happened too, I think, for Shannon Sharp as well. Like he was, bigger career than Pat McAfee, Hall of Famer, multiple time champion, and he grew his influence and on First Take and then social media. He's always on there engaging with fans and talking trash and sometimes just putting his thoughts out there. But I think social media helped enhance his profile as well. He has Club Shay Shay. I don't think that would have been nearly as big. Just being on First Take and giving his takes on there, I don't think Club Shay Shay would have been nearly as big. And he outgrew the show now, and he's got big things in store for him. I'm not sure exactly what yet, but he's gonna get paid, and he's gonna get paid really handsomely. But I think his social media profile, he became bigger than his days in the sport now.
Totally.
I would agree.
Yeah, so obviously we've talked about the good things. There's also the bad things that have happened that's ruined careers. It's exposed people. It's I think about when I was in college during the when I was in the minor, the sports business management minor at DeVos. One of the first days, Dr. Professor Buckstein was saying is like, don't put anything on your social media account that you don't want to come back and bite you in the ass later. Don't basically do not write anything, do not post anything, do not put pictures up that you don't want coming back later on in your life. That don't write anything that you would ever want to erase, basically. And at that time, I think I was messing around on Twitter here and there, but I wasn't really, I just got into the Instagram game a little bit, and I don't mess with Facebook too much. But I was already like that, though. I was already like, I'm not going to put anything on here that somebody can come back and quote me later and be like, remember back in this year you said X Y Z. You see that all the time now. But that's what was my philosophy. Unfortunately, it's not a lot of current players and philosophy or their philosophy in the past. So, Sean, I'll start with you. What's some of the negative things? And obviously, you have some more recent and past events to kind of pick from. But uh, the negative side of social media and athletes. What are some of the things you've seen that kind of like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, I think you were hitting on one of the really good ones right there is when something goes up on social media, it can no longer be taken back. Yeah, even if you delete it, someone can screenshot it, and especially if you're famous. If you're not famous, then okay, maybe not so much. Like people probably aren't screenshotting what you're saying, but if you're a famous athlete, it's it's gone. It's up there. So you've seen people, who have gotten, canceled and, like basically became hated because tweets came out from, maybe 10 plus years ago where they said something very distasteful or,
Mm-hmm.
arguably, like racist or something like that. Like that's happened multiple times. You know, and uh, and other people too. Like there's been situations where social media has, allowed for rumors to spread. Like this,
Mm-hmm.
what happened recently with the punter that was on the Bills. Is I don't know, Matt
Matt
something.
Ariza.
Yeah, I think his nickname is Punt God. He
Punt. Yeah.
he got accused of, I believe, rape or sexual assault, and um, he got cut from the team. His whole life got like derailed, and it wasn't until like a year later that they finally proved that he wasn't even there. But all of that was caused by social media and by an uproar that, oh, he did this. So it's like there is still that downside for, famous people, especially famous athletes, um,
Mm-hmm.
where things can come up, and if you're not careful about what you're posting or who you're posting towards or where you're putting your stuff, then it can come back very badly and bite you in the butt.
What about you, Justin? I know there's been a lot of things. You primarily follow, fight the fight game. Like, what have you seen that you're like, if social media didn't exist, this situation may not have ever happened.
I think the beautiful thing about, or the good thing about social media is that it shows you the person's personality. But I think the downside of it is that it shows you their personality because certain fighters, I feel
Yeah.
like they just, I almost feel like if you become a professional athlete, you need to have like social media training because some people just don't have
Mm-hmm.
like a filter. They don't understand that very concept that Sean just mentioned that whatever you say, it doesn't matter how quickly you delete it. Someone probably screenshotted it. Like you can't take
Mm-hmm.
those things back. You can try to give apologies, but it's kind of like people kind of see you for who you really are. I guess it's almost like how they say like you should never meet your heroes because they might not be the greatest person. But it's to a
Mm-hmm.
degree. It's kind of like that. You see like you're not just seeing the picture of them, dunking a basketball or them in a fight or something, you're seeing like them outside of their game or their sport or whatever, and you see them as they are as a person, and it's kind of disheartening, or
Mm-hmm.
you hear about like the locker room stories where they're not getting along with other teammates and stuff. I don't know if we want to like name specific people, but there's people that I have in mind of that, have been like some of the best players in the league in the last few years in the NFL, and then you know the last few years they've had a lot of trouble partially because of stuff that they posted online, and it's crazy like the impact that can have on their career. So I think players or any athlete needs to be careful about that sort of stuff, just like what Sean was saying. But I think another downside too is that you know the internet is ruthless. It doesn't matter if you're the best at something or you're the worst. The internet is gonna roast you for something. Tom Brady gets roasted just as much as Nathan Peterman or something, and if you're not ready for it can be harmful mentally, like it's or you I mean geez, like look at all the memes that go up seconds after someone gets knocked out in a fight. It's brutal, man. The internet just wants to make a laugh, and if you don't like understand it and you can't just take it with a grain of salt and just be separated from it, it's that can be very damaging. Like you'll want to stay off social media after something like that. So yeah, it's important to have distance from social media from time to time, especially when things are going bad. But some people just cannot stay away from the post button or the send tweet button.
Yeah, it's yeah. You're right about the viral moments because like they'll turn. I've seen people get knocked out in a fight, and then 5 seconds later, somebody did a whole animation of like remember when Israel Adesanya, and this wasn't as bad of an example, but when Israel Adesanya knocked out Pereira,
Yeah,
and next thing you know, like 5 minutes later, there's somebody did the graphic work of him shooting the arrows into
Yeah,
him, and like, the internet's quick too. They're not only ruthless, but it's quick. But yeah, it's unforgiving too. My God, people, because the
yeah,
sad thing, you'll go down a list and people are just roasting, 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 and it's bad, man. Like you get caught up in a certain situation. Once you put yourself out there on social media, like you have your picture, you have anything, people will find a way to bring you down. I think kind of going even further with that, um, there's opportunists. You know what I mean? It's being an athlete, being somebody of note, being rich, being famous. There's always people trying to look for ways to exploit you, and that's definitely one of the downsides of the internet. You see it right now with the unfortunate the Zion Williams situation, and him having another woman that's coming out and threatening to drop a tape, and it's gotten so bad now. The team is looking at potentially trading him. He had some other things like the injury type stuff going on, and but I mean, the bigger threat to his career is you know a person he had allegedly had relations with. So that's that's the scary part. You know what I mean? There's always been people. I've been to games. I've sat on the court side. I've seen the those that are the opportunists, I guess you'll say, that are looking to to try and take advantage, that groupies, things like that. Every sport, every genre of music and everything have these people that want to try and come up off of somebody else's fame, and they find it as a quick and easy path to financial to having wealth and to being able to take care of their family and stuff like that. So that's to me that's one of the bigger downsides is like, yeah, you can have this personally online, but you can have also people that come out there and they may lie about you, or they may be telling truth about a personal relationship you had with them, or they outright just jealous or hateful and try to harm you. And that's what's happening unfortunately with Zion and the Pelicans is this this individual's trying to ruin this man's career. And there's NDAs that these players and musicians, stars have people sign, but these people is just if somebody wants to come up, they're gonna try and they'll make it happen any way they can. So that's one of the downsides. The other downside is just trolls. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people on there on the internet just doing the right things. They're not engaging in any kind of harmful rhetoric or anything like that. But people, you just see people, the miserable people, just come on there and just say just the most negative and nasty things, like for no reason. You know what I mean? Just because they're either miserable or hurting themselves, they want to hurt somebody else. So you see that a lot of times on social media. What's
yeah.
funny about that, though, on the reverse of that, in boxing and MMA, is sometimes people meet those trolls face to face. I don't know if you ever saw the video of Deontay Wilder going to a gym, and there was a troll, the Charlie Zelenoff guy. I don't know if you know him. He goes to gyms, and instead of sparring, people do light sparring. He's going in there full force. But he had said something. Wilder's daughter was born with spina bifida. His first daughter was born with spina bifida, and I don't know what he said about him, but Wilder was like, "Yeah, tell me what gym you're at, and I'm gonna meet you there." And Wilder actually flew out to California, I think from Alabama, and went over there and taught the guy a lesson. And the guy apologized, obviously. I saw a video most recently. A guy, Sonny Edwards, a boxer. He's a British boxer, I believe, and he went and beat up a troll. This guy, he had him like swaying. He was hitting him. I mean, he wasn't taking it easy on him at all. So I'm sure a lot of people in every sport would love to meet up with the trolls, but regardless, they'll be there. Like you go meet one up, then another one's gonna pop up. That's just the internet, man, and the ruthless side of it.
And yeah, I think tying back in with what Justin was talking about and a little bit of what Ricky was talking about as well is as an athlete, you need to have a mental toughness, not even on like well, definitely on the court or on the field, but off
Hmm.
the off the court, off the field as well, and we've seen some athletes, I'm not going to name any names, who, you know, when they get trolled, like they feel the need to respond and they like make burner accounts and things like that. It's like,
I was gonna
like
mention that.
you gotta, like avoid those situations and not respond to these people as much as possible. I mean, like it's definitely, like if you let them get under your skin on social media, then like what's going to happen, when some player comes up and is trash talking you, or like anonymous people can trash talk you and all this stuff. And I think I've seen it a lot with, I've always said that I think Philadelphia is one of the worst cities as far as like their sports media, because they will rip you apart if you are not doing well. And like, so there's been so many talented athletes who play in Philadelphia, and the media and social media just like destroys their career because it's like they have
Hmm.
like some bad games. Like you've seen it, Carson Wentz, Ben Simmons, Markel Fultz,
Yeah.
like all these people who have like really high expectations, and then like the media just rips them apart so much that they lose their confidence. And if you don't have confidence as
Hmm.
an athlete, then
Yeah.
it's not going to be easy for you. So
Yeah, it can be like we said, it can be a brutal place, and especially like the more followers you get, the more susceptible you are to being taken apart by trolls or just it can be. The sad thing too is it's even the media, because it's like the media can generate talking points. What their whole thing is about viewership. So even if it's a take, it's like it's all about the hot take. Even if it's something that they don't truly believe, they'll say it about the athlete, or they'll try and get them to engage with them because hey, like if they get them to engage with them, then it's something to put on their show in the morning. You know what I mean? And to get the masses talking. And so that's another downside I think for athletes is that they can be picked apart, and sometimes fairly and a lot of times unfairly. You know what I mean? But speaking of the burner accounts too, that's what's bad about that is when the burner accounts exposed, and you're like, why you have an alter ego online that's basically trying to fight your battles for you instead of you fighting your battles if you need to fight your battles, or you just ignoring it.
I
We're gonna
I
say,
think
yeah.
I think it starts with the fact that they're not like athletes aren't supposed to fight with the trolls on social media.
Hmm.
Like it's not a good look for them to do that. So the athletes that feel the need to respond will make these burner accounts to fight for them, but once you get exposed as a burner account, it looks even worse than if you were to just do it yourself. So it's like if you're not exposed, then it's fine. Then nobody knows. But if you get exposed, then it's like oof, like that looks worse than if you had just done it as yourself.
You guys
Yeah,
feel
and
like
that's
go ahead.
I was gonna say a quote that I love, and it's like if anybody trolls me, I don't know, or any of us, like it's just like lions should not care about the feelings or thoughts of sheep. And that's the way you should look at it. Like you've made it to the pinnacle of your sport or to your industry or whatever.
Yeah.
You're talented, you're gifted, you're doing fantastic. Like why care about some Cheeto eating guy in the basement in a dirty T-shirt? You know what I mean? Why do you care about that guy? Like who cares what he has to say? I know it's easy to get triggered, and people I mean, people go after dead family members and children with, disabilities. It's just dirty, you know what I mean? But at the same time, you gotta, you're bigger than that. You're bigger than them. They're down there, they're down here, you're up here. Like you shouldn't. You're a lion. You shouldn't care about the thoughts of the sheep or a gazelle, or because you see them face to face, you're gonna eat them alive, and there's no reason for you to even open your mouth, show your teeth or your jaws, because they know in their heart, you're the lion, they're the sheep. So don't engage.
Do you guys think like in the future going forward, like major sports networks are going to be less relevant for athletes because they've kind of been like the middleman between the athletes and the fans. You know, they interview the athletes, they do all sorts of things like that. But now that social media lets fans connect directly to athletes, and also fans can just look up, replays of sports on Twitter and things like that. Do you think like ESPN or any of these other major sports networks are becoming less relevant as time goes on, or like what do you think their role is going to be in the future?
I I think they're changing, and you've seen it even if you go back 10 years and look at what Sports Center and the shows on ESPN used to do and used to say, and you look at what they are now. It's a lot more shows are opinion
Debate.
based talk shows where the two hosts are very against each other and
Yeah.
saying nonsense because that's what gets the views and that's what
Yeah.
that's what they do now as opposed to just being Sports Center. If you used to turn on Sports Center, you would just get the news within sports. Like you'd see highlights of this game and that game, and like it would be just like highlights and news, and like that was it. Now it's all like, oh, this opinion, that opinion. So I think that's
You're
kind of the shift that
wrong.
they're
You're wrong. I'm right. That type of
yeah,
stuff.
that's the shift that they're making is instead of it being a platform for athletes or a platform to show the sports because that's now on social media, they're like, okay, we're going to show, these well, maybe not well respected, but people who are very popular who have opinions about sports, and we're going to show them arguing with each other and, you know, make everyone pick sides type of thing.
Yeah, it's followed the model of news because news is the same thing now. You get two people with opposing views and just have them going back and forth at each other, and I think that's kind of America. Unfortunately, is we like controversy and we like debates, we like arguments. It's like all of the majority of the reality shows. That's what they do. You're throwing a drink in somebody's face and talking bad about them, and that's what unfortunately has happened to our the ESPNs, the FS1s, I like CBS Sports YouTube channel because they're like no fake debates, no fake arguments. That's what they end their YouTube videos with because I've seen some arguments that these people have that is like you can tell the person doesn't believe what the hell they're saying. They're just saying it to go back and forth with the person across the table with them. And I mean, one of them, the guy was just like he was laughing while he was saying it because he didn't believe what he was saying. But to answer your question, Justin, I really honestly don't know. Like, there's the ratings and viewership have gone down with quite a few of these shows. You can go on social media. Even with athletes now, they've kind of taken the media out of the equation by what is it called? What's it called? Something voice, athletes' voices, or something. I forget what it is. There's a platform, I guess, where athletes kind of publish their own stories or their own, and LeBron is, that's one of the big things LeBron has done is he has his own media company, and a lot of these athletes are taken out of the hands of these broadcast networks and telling this story from their perspective and using social media to do so. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the ESPNs and the FS1s and CBS Sports. Kind of, I don't think that's a thing anymore. That kind of went under on television broadcasts. But yeah, I think social media is there's going to be more social media related, YouTube related shows. One of the thing I was going to say as well is, and it can be looked as a downside, but OnlyFans, like there's a lot of boxers now, and there's some UFC fighters that are OnlyFans, and I'm not gonna down anybody. You make your money how you want to make your money, hustle how you can hustle. But there's been some boxers I've respected that I'm just like, damn, she has an OnlyFans. But when I looked a little further, they didn't. The OnlyFans, not that I went into the account or anything. I ain't paying for that shit. But they do. I am not paying for that. They they have actual shows like showing training and like actual like their own show where they talk about fighting and training and stuff like that. So not all everybody's on there like showing their bodies or whatever. You know what I mean? What OnlyFans is typically known for. They actually have a platform to to discuss their career. So.
Right.
So I guess that could be a negative or positive. Not like I said, hustle, make your money however you want to. But yeah, the OnlyFans thing is kind of, I didn't know that they had a platform at first. I thought it was like OnlyFans was just what most people think it is. But yeah, there's actual boxers and UFC fighters on there that, and I'm sure other sports as well that have just their shows on there. So
Sure.
any other downsides you guys can think of? There's been some. Oh, I was gonna mention as well. Yeah, you mentioned it, Sean. I was trying to find a way to say it without like going too much into it, but to tell the dog to shut up. Posting things when you shouldn't post them. When, you have a John Moran situation where you got things happened, the league is coming down on you, but you continue to do it. Some people are addicted to social media, so I think that's another downside that we didn't mention is the addiction to it. And addiction, sometimes that addiction is like I want to get attention for no matter what it is, and maybe
Right.
I put on a persona that's not really my persona, and it can ruin your career.
I think that
Sure.
ties back into the recklessness of it.
Hmm.
If you're someone who's supposed to be an athlete who like the the athletes that they're gonna kind of idolize on an ESPN or something are the ones that are supposed to be role models, right? The ones who are the ones that kids can look up to. If you're out there doing stuff that's reckless, that's questionable character type stuff, that's gonna you might get your 15 minutes of fame when they're talking about you, but everything they're going to be saying about you is how you're an idiot. So is it really worth the 15 minutes of fame if everyone's turning against you because of it? You can lose sponsorships or lose money, salary if you have to miss games, type of thing.
Hmm. It could be very bad. Like why lose? Was it looking like 12 to $20 million? Come on, man. Like great, fantastic player. There's no need for it. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, any other things you guys can think of, or can we wrap it up? I think we've kind of touched on a lot of different things, and we all, some of the things we didn't want to mention on the podcast because it's, shouldn't be mentioned on a podcast on YouTube or anything like that. And some of it's just not our damn business either. But,
No.
but yeah, no. Um, Kids out there, anybody watching, um, just don't ever post anything that you may regret, or anything that's kind of a stance that you may end up. You never know who your customers are going to be, or who your fans are going to become, or who's going to be lining your pockets, and you offend them or say something. I mean, it could be the end for you. You know what I mean? You have to rebuild your image, which is ridiculously hard. So yeah, with that being said, thank you guys for tuning in as always. No trolls, but we want everybody to kind of tune into our social media, tune into our podcast. Follow us on our Instagram, our socials. Everything will keep it posted at the bottom of our the different platforms that we're on. And yeah, we're building this movement. We want everybody to jump on. And yeah, we'll have a lot in store in the future. And yeah, we'll be posting some pretty cool content here. And thank you, Sean, too, as well for working on Justin, working on the putting the content out and putting some good images and everything out there. And yeah, we hope you guys appreciate that. They're working hard. That being said, we hope you guys have a good week. We hope you guys play the social media game the right way, and hopefully you have a productive week. And we look forward to seeing you guys on the next podcast. Peace out.